welcome to today's show. I wanted to do a video about Hurricane Florence and just ask people out there to keep anyone who's in the line of the hurricane in their prayers. A lot of people obviously live on the East Coast who listen to this channel. A lot of people's family members do. And I want to make people out there aware of weather modification, of engineering weather, because a lot of people out there don't know it. Now, I'm not saying that this specific storm couldn't be an act of God, or it could be an act of weather modification, right? Obviously, we're in hurricane season. These things happen. Sometimes when you see bizarre patterns in storms like we saw last year with hurricanes like Hurricane Harvey that was just sitting over Texas, like literally the hurricane stopped and just sat there for days, which is just not really a characteristic you see in hurricanes. You start to say, okay, this is probably a storm that has been modified and controlled through weather manipulation. And again, no one knows what this storm is, or even if this storm's going to pan out to be what they say it is. But keep everybody in your prayers. But I want to just put this documentary piece in there. Not really a documentary piece, but this is something from Disney that they made many years ago. I show this video pretty often. So last time I did was last year. But there's a lot of new subscribers here. It's something that you need to see about controlling the weather. Even Disney producing videos talking about how important it's going to be to control the weather years down the line. We have JFK talking about using the weather as a weapon and weaponizing weather. And people out there still don't think we have the technology to do these things. I mean, it's pretty amazing to me that they don't think we can do that. Yet, we have people who are making robots that can talk, walk, and act like humans. You don't think that they have the technology and the capability of doing this stuff? You don't think that, what do you think they're doing at places like HARP or places like CERN, the technology that they have there? It's to be able to do these types of things and manipulate the weather. So this little piece here is from Disney, which is just funny, right? Because we all know Disney, you might as well just call Disney the CIA because they work hand in hand. And the CIA actually runs operations out of Disney underneath, but that's another story for another day. Everybody out there who hasn't seen it should watch it. And if you have seen it, it's definitely worth watching again, just to refresh your memory. Because remember, we see some of this stuff, then we forget about it. There's so much more new information to keep processing, especially when we wake up. So this is a video from Disney talking about weather modification. Take a look. And again, keep everybody out there in your prayers who might be in line to, encounter this hurricane, who might lose their homes or family members or suffer, go through stuff. Obviously, keep them in your prayers. I thank you again for listening. Take a look.
We shall propose further cooperative efforts between all the nations in weather prediction and eventually in weather control.
Prediction charts have indicated that a powerful hurricane will begin forming today in the Atlantic Ocean. The electronic weather map shows an intense storm system building up about 1,000 miles due east of Miami, Florida. The controller calls for a close-up satellite view of the troubled area.
Coordinates: Coco 526, Yankee 2.5.
Okay, controller. Coco 526, Yankee 2.5.
The characteristic swirling clouds of the hurricane are beginning to form. At sea, the waves anticipate the violence to come. The controller calls for a last-minute prediction of the hurricane's path. If control measures are not begun at once, the hurricane will smash across densely populated areas within 48 hours.
11 a.m. EST. A hurricane is forming 960 miles east of Miami, Florida. If control measures are ineffective, it will pass inland at Cape Hatteras in 48 hours. Control operations will begin within 2 hours, but safety precautions should be completed from Cape Fear, north no later than 6 p.m. tomorrow.
At Weather Central, the control strategy is mapped out. A ridge of high pressure slants across the eastern United States between two low-pressure storm systems. If these two storm centers are intensified, the high will build up along the coast, forming a barrier that will turn the hurricane out to sea.
Stand by. Now pulling in satellite number 1 for visual check of low pressure systems L20 and L21.
The operator brings the satellite into focus on the two storms. One centered over Kansas, the other over Labrador.
Changing to northeastern low L21.
touch of a button. The battle begins. On the ground, chemical cloud seeders begin to work the two storm areas. Robot planes seed the clouds from above. The storm centers over Kansas and over Labrador intensify as seeding continues.
Now changing over to Hurricane Center AG.
The fury of the hurricane mounts as 100-mile-an-hour winds lash the sea to a foaming frenzy.
All stations, Sector C. Activate Phase 2, Control Plan Delta. Set vapor rockets for 42,000 feet. Execute...
As an emergency measure, the controller calls for a salvo of vapor rockets to be fired ahead of the path the hurricane is predicted to take. These artificial clouds will block the sun from evaporating more water to feed the hurricane. The reports coming into the control center indicate that the diversionary cloud seeding over Kansas is now creating a flood danger. Specially equipped robot aircraft are dispatched immediately to release a high concentration of cloud seeding material into the fringes of the storm. Heavier seeding from the ground also helps to subdue the rain by spreading it over a wider area. The controller calls for another view of the hurricane, which has now moved closer to the coast.
Signal out on number 1 satellite. 10-minute interruption for correction. Have you anything else in the area?
Satellite station S1 is approaching area. We'll make contact. S1, this is Weather Central. Request video signal at grid coordinates COCO.
An emergency situation has developed. In an orbiting space station 1,000 miles above the hurricane, a crewman sends a temporary picture back to Weather Central.
Okay, S1, your video is R5S5. Thank you.
The hurricane has stopped moving toward the coast, but is still intensifying. It must be made to move northward and out to sea. This is a crisis.
Aberdeen Station. Activate multiple seeding rockets on course 117.
The controller decides to fire cloud seeding rockets just ahead of the hurricane, hoping to start it moving. Slowly, the hurricane begins to shift. All available forces have been brought into play. Now we can only watch and wait. After hours of tension, the turning point is reached. Latest reports indicate the control strategy is successful. At last, the high-pressure ridge has settled along the coast, forming an invisible wall of safety. The storm is over. The danger has passed. The hurricane has been defeated, turned away from the land, and left to spend itself harmlessly far out at sea. In the world of tomorrow, weather control will enrich and safeguard our daily lives. In the foreseeable future, we will conquer more than violent storms. We will turn the destructive elements of today into new sources of power, shaping the land on which we live. All mankind will benefit. Arid wastelands will be made green and fertile, and vast frozen areas will become productive. To this end, man-made satellites will probe the secrets of the skies. They will be our eyes in outer space.
This is a call for an uprising. Welcome to today.